All right, we are live on Las Vegas Triathlon Club Facebook page. We're recording. I'm John Mercer, president of Las Vegas Tri Club. We've got co-host Bob Gamble here for a member spot.
Hello.
Bob, how's it going?
Good. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we had a big weekend this last weekend. We actually did an event, which was awesome. And it was so great to see Mario Sanchez at the event. I love Mario because he is a competitor. And tonight he's our member, our Las Vegas Tri Club member spotlight. And it's going to be a lot of fun and really interesting to hear Mario's story of getting started in triathlon and working so hard to get to a really competitive level. And it's so great that he comes down and does our events. I love it when we get our top people out doing our event. And he just is he's one of those guys who just is right there at the top, and you just never know when he's going to pop one and really have a great race. And so it's really neat to have him on here tonight. So Mario, thanks for joining us. Before we get going, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Gamble for our official introduction.
And like John said, we have Mario Sanchez, and on our spotlight tonight. I'm happy to have Mario here because I wanted to talk to him. One of the things I admire most about Mario is he's got the reputation of being a fierce competitor. I never see him on the bike course because I can't, I'm not in the same league, but I understand that Mario, whenever he gets his sights on you on the bike, you're as good as gone. I mean, he's going to reel you in. And he's a tough competitor. He's fast. And whenever the race is over, he is the nicest guy. It's like he's going to come up to you, and no matter who you are, and congratulate you. And it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde almost. This guy he's fierce, he's tough, he's a great triathlete. And then you have a handshake coming at you, and it's like here's Mario. He's just the nicest guy. So that's one of the things I really admire about Mario. Mario's been with the club since 2016, and that's when he did his first race. And one of the things I want to ask Mario right from the start is, were you always this fast, or did you start off a beast, or did you have to work at it?
I did have to work at it. And first of all, I want to say hello and thank you for having me, and hello to everyone out there. But yeah, the beast mode does come into play a little later. So it did take some time in practice, but a lot of it came fairly easy. And in order for me to help out the beast mode, they did require a lot of lifting, a lot of commitment, and a lot of dedication. And a lot of saddle time, of course. So I figured myself, instead of waiting for so many years to get better at the bike, I figured I'd just cheat the process or the profile of just weightlifting. And that was one of the key elements that made me or gave me the reputation that I have on the bike.
Really? You mean building strength early?
Yes, a lot of strength and conditioning.
That's interesting.
And like I said, it's just a matter of just, instead of waiting for it to come here, I became a go-getter and reached out and got it. And a lot of the weightlifting, which I owe a lot of the weightlifting, and to get where I'm at right now. But of course, you also need a lot of heart.
Mm-hmm. You must have been a boxer. That's a boxing term.
In high school, there was I belonged to the boxing club in high school. That was a lot of fun as well.
Well, speaking of high school, was there a sport that you were strong in to start with? Like, were you a strong runner or a strong swimmer, or
Well,
what
actually,
did you do before?
What I did before was mostly just a lot of boxing, and this was in high school, and then I continued for a lot of years after high school. I continued on with a lot of the amateur fights, and I also turned into a pro-am. And then once I figured there wasn't much money into it, I wasn't that dedicated to it, just because I wanted to stay busy in high school and stay out of trouble, being from California and whatnot. After that, I kind of just let go of it, but I've always was always gruesome in the ring.
Yeah, I didn't know that. There's a long story, but yeah. So I guess that helped to make you a fierce competitor too.
Yeah.
You don't climb into the ring with somebody, and you don't you automatically go to 100%, period.
You have to. You have to. You know.
Well, it's interesting because there's a pro triathlete that I, have like listened to some of the things he talked about Jordan Rapp. And one of these things he would talk about before an endurance event like an Ironman, he'd watch a boxing match. And he'd watch it because of the technicality and the skill set that you really had to be very smart as a boxer. And and he would try to translate over that to racing. So do you see the parallels between boxing and racing?
Yeah, you could, because it's no matter what, it's going to be the same aggressive nature of being as brutal and letting the animal out of you as much as you can. And there's really, in the ring, there's really isn't much time to waste. And, and especially in some of these sprint races, there really isn't much time to waste.
That's a good connection. And I don't know when you boxed, I did when I was young, and it was like we had 3 2-minute rounds, and you had to prove yourself in 3 2-minute rounds. And
yeah, you
100%.
You really had to. You really had to. So a lot of the ugliness was there in regards of the mentality of being an animal. I can see why some of the, it's the same language, being out on the bike and being out there in the field, being a competitor with
I wonder you're such a fierce sprinter.
I try.
Well, what drew you to triathlon?
To be quite honest, I just wanted to race my road bike or my time trial bike. That's all I wanted to do. And it looked like, so given that there were so many events in California, and every weekend there was an event. There was a time trial, there was a road course or whatnot, and there was a mountain bike race. There were a dime a dozen in California. And so once I moved here and I had my mountain bike, I just felt like it wasn't efficient to just have the bike sitting there or roll out of the garage, because back in California, there was definitely a lot of trails without having to travel so much. And here, there was some travel time to get out to some of the decent trails. So that's how I got into the road stuff. I did let go. Unfortunately, I did sell and let go of my mountain bike, but I ended up getting a road bike for a little bit. Right after that, I just hopped on board with the time trial bike. I just wanted to race the bike. So
I love it.
And since the only races that were coming to town were tri events, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, man. It seems like so much work. This is not something that I was into, but I just wanted to race my bike. Yeah. That's all I wanted to do. But I didn't think it would be that much of an involvement, being a triathlon. So in order to race that, I had to pick up a dual sport, and here we are, right?
That's so cool.
Triathlon was a carrier.
It sure did. I just feel like, I started from the bottom and now we're here.
Well, that's great, because you're right. I mean, we don't have a lot of cycling races here.
No.
And so that's so cool to see you sort of shift gears and say, okay, well, there's a bike segment, and I just need to swim and run outside my bike. So
right.
What was your first race like?
Oh, my first race, well, I just felt like my heart was going to come out through my throat and just was going to come out through my mouth or something. Because I to have so much energy and power and yet still not blow up, it's something that I needed to learn how to use, how to be efficient with it. And
I was going to ask you about that, Mario. I mean, where did the endurance come from, and how did you develop that? You had the power, you had the explosiveness. How did you work the endurance part into it? Because you're still out there for an hour and 20 minutes or so.
Well, yeah. But that's just now. It's just all time and research, and that's what I'm doing now. So it's all going to be, it's going to develop slowly. But it all started here in Las Vegas, to be honest with you. A lot of racing in California, a lot of motorcycle racing, a lot of mountain bike racing, and like I said, there's races. There are a dime a dozen out there. They're almost every weekend. You're a stone throw away from a local event, and but being something like this that's more of long term, and having to collect as much data and process it and lay it down and have a plan and execute it, it's a completely different cup of tea.
That's part of it. That's making that plan as part of the hobby, part of the sport.
And understanding it too. So at first, that some of the struggles, it's just going out there and doing it, but I really didn't know what I was doing. I just was going out to perform.
Right. It sounds like you learned a lot though.
I've
About the
learned a lot. I've
technical
learned a lot.
aspect.
Yeah, and you got to be smart about it too, And for example, last week's event, because the motivation, the drive wasn't there from all the stuff that's been going on from 2020, because obviously, the COVID, among other things, that's taken a toll on the community and across the country. And so I just, little by little, I prepared myself for this event, and I just have one swim, one run, and one brick a week. So I only train 3 days out of the week.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm
That's great.
This fast.
I am
And you're
famous for time crunch athlete.
Yeah.
I am
crazy.
I am a time crunch athlete, and that's I don't know where I placed or whatnot. Maybe top 10, maybe top 5, but there was a lot of competition out there, and a lot of people were flexing, and it was very, very beautiful to see.
Yeah.
But I just one swim, one run, and one brick a week is pretty much what I'm limited to.
That's right now. That's what you're doing.
Pretty much right now. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
How far
do you swim?
amazing.
How far do you swim in your one swim a week?
I pretty much just throw down like 1,500 meters, sorry. 1,500 meters. And I had my run today, for example, and I'll be doing my brick later on in the week. And in between, I might just go to the gym and do some strength training and, throw around a couple tractor tires and kettlebells and, put it all together, get that plan going.
Hey, can I ask you? You've done Olympics as well. Do you?
Yes, I have.
What do you like better, the Olympic or the sprint?
You know what? I hate to admit this, but I really like the Olympic, and the reason I'm saying that is I feel that itch of just going longer. I really would like to do a half, and that's something that I was planning to do last year, but it didn't work out. A lot of us lost some fitness and whatnot. Morale was obviously low, like I mentioned a minute ago. But, being that it's a new year, I don't see why I can participate in something like that, one of the half Ironmans. But Olympic is really my cup of tea. I feel like I can really be explosive and have the unlimited heart rate, if you will, and be as quick and fast as I can.
Well, I'll tell you what, I really like the message you're giving out is that one, you can be you can race at a high level with really focused training. I think that's really great for people to hear. You don't need to put in 20 hours a week. You can be very focused and, like you said, have a plan and go forward. But I want to go back. I want to hear a little bit more about your entry into triathlon. You said you wanted to go and race your bike.
That's all I wanted to do.
And you've got bike racing experience, but then you throw that swim in front of it. What was it like getting on your bike after doing the swim?
I can't say that it was very, very difficult, but it seemed like my brain was still at the lake and my body was on the bike, that of equilibrium not being in sync. So there was a lot of things that needed to be massaged out, and of course, in due time and being diligent about it and the proper training, you want to be able to be focused and be all one as you're coming out the lake. But the lake is definitely. It's not something that I was really accustomed to. Yeah. That of the swimming. And of course, I'm not very accustomed to running.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like when you ran for the first time coming off the bike, coming off a hard hammered bike?
Oh, man. Obviously, it's my kryptonite. And it probably is some of my kryptonite today.
Well, you're not alone.
No, well, yeah, I know. There's a lot of us out there, but it's being... How do I answer that? It just feels like there's sandbags in the quads and the knees and the hips. I can't seem to break out of that mold. But I tend to run fine, without doing all three on any average day. The running is there, the running aspect and the form, and it's all there. The education is there too. It's just slowly but surely, but it's definitely there.
That's great.
After the bike, it's definitely a tough one.
So you've worked hard to get where you are now with being a high level athlete. I'm interested in what you're thinking about now. Now that you're a triathlete. That's what we all think of you as, a triathlete. Yes, you're a strong cyclist, but we all think of you as a triathlete. What are you thinking about right on that start line?
For some reason, I always look for other safety. Yeah, we definitely had a few tough ones out there where I believe it was the Pumpkin Man of 2017. That water was not fun. It was not user friendly whatsoever, and there was a lot of people screaming help. It was right in front of us. So ever since that, it could be a learning experience. But for some reason, I do forget about racing, and I get into maybe if someone needs help, that's something that I've always been willing to do. But at the same time, I like to be prepared mentally because a lot of this has to do with mental fitness.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it. So then, as you come in on the swim, when do you start trying to change that focus to bike? Because you've got a lot of experience doing time trials, I imagine, with on the bike. So how do you transition from that swim mentally to what you need to do on the bike?
Well, actually, that part is fairly simple. If it wasn't for these wetsuits to be so darn stubborn to come off, like I think things would be a little bit easier. Just like, for example, last Saturday, I feel like I overdressed. The water wasn't that cold. It was great. It was great, but
It was 58 degrees. What do you mean it wasn't that cold?
I honestly thought that sleeveless would have been a sleeveless wetsuit could have been more adequate for that.
Wow.
It was perfect. In my opinion.
Well, you're gonna do wonderful in June then.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope we all do.
Now the next transition. So you're coming in on the bike and you're just killing it. I know you come down that Boulder Beach access and you were just flying.
And I don't want to slow down.
When do you start switching to run mode?
I would say right before I unhook the feet from my shoes stay on the bike, and right about there, that's when I start getting into run mode. I'm already thinking of 0.2, 0.5, 0.7 of a mile up the hill, and that hill, man, I got some issues with that hill. I can't seem to beat that thing. A lot of people seem to beat it rather well, but I try to think ahead. But that running uphill right away, it's definitely a tough course.
Yeah, I don't know how to deal with that myself.
It's a tough one, but you know what, dude? This course is here in Vegas. It'll put some hair on your chest.
Yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at. I'm glad you mentioned that.
No, absolutely not. This is something I recommend for anyone. This particular course, either for sprint, the Olympic, and I'm also looking for the Las Vegas try to do that half. They have that half here, the long course, I should say, and that's something I'm looking into. And that would definitely be a great accomplishment if I can finish that race. But these courses out here, they're no laughing matter.
Yeah,
these are definitely tough courses.
No, they don't advertise that as a rolling hill. They just say it's hilly.
Yeah, you know what? I want to stick. I think I'll stick with the rolling hills. You can't really find that rhythm. You really can't find that consistency per se. But that's where all that mental fitness and physical fitness comes into play.
Yep. I had a pro triathlete tell me that if you can race and train here in Vegas, you can race anywhere.
I agree, 100%. A lot the LA Tri event, which I had signed up for last year and unfortunately got canceled. I am looking forward to doing that. I believe that's in Venice Beach. And you go right through downtown and you're running back right through Chinatown and get overlook my old hometown, the old Dodger Stadium. And I think that would be a great experience.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. So how soon after you completed your first triathlon did you say, all right, I'm ready to sign up for the next one?
Oh, that was pretty much right away.
Oh, cool.
Within the same week. It's just something that, again, everything revolved around racing my bicycle.
Yeah.
And I never really liked being a triathlon. I never really got into it. But at the end of the day, it turns into a Bible. Yeah. And it gets very, very addicting. And you know what gets addicting is figuring out your body.
Mm-hmm.
That's what keeps you going. For some reason, what if I do this? What if I tweak this? What if I tweak that? And everything's a learning process. And that's the addicting part about it, is figuring out your body. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn it going through this route in life here in town. And I'm glad it's here in Vegas. I mean, it's not in California or Florida or New York. it is here. I'm very, very proud of that.
That's great. Well, and I imagine as you're doing that, I mean, part of learning is making mistakes. And
It is. I've had many costly mistakes. I can't preach enough on regards of educating yourself. And, you can't go out and buy $30 shoes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I was doing. I would just get the 1999 shoes over at the Big Five, and that's exactly what I did. And I am telling you from actual personal experience, I spent $20 on my first pair of running shoes. And once I tore into those shoes, maybe I would say 100 miles, that's when the snake bites started to happen in the calf, and a lot of deep muscle tears started happening. And that's where a lot of the crucial mistakes were happening, where I might have missed 1 or 2 races because of that. And again, I can't emphasize enough on educating yourself on the right shoes.
That is great. Yeah. And you're right, because now you're probably spending, 5 times, 20 times that, but it's saving you a
Saves
lot.
your injuries.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then along the lines of getting hurt when you're educating yourself, is how to recover and how to bounce back and get into that whole introduction of getting into running again. And that's also one of the key elements of getting back into it, because I did get hurt just giving myself a 0.5 of a mile. The next step was 1 mile. The next step is 1.5, and I go to a 3 mile. But again, the lack of education was very costly. But now I'm spending some serious money on it, and I'm going on 2 years without one injury.
Wow, that's great.
And what do you attribute that to? Is anything more than just being in good shoes to not getting injured? Is there any, the way you're training?
Absolutely. The recovery. Before, I was really sore and sluggish and tired just from the calves alone. Now my calves, I can go out and run 8, 9 miles, 10 miles, and my calves won't feel a thing. Now it's
Because
just
you give them time to recover.
I give them time to recover, but I also that I don't feel any pain. I don't feel any sluggish, any soreness in the calves, even right after a run and throughout the day, because I'm able to go to work. And me being a motorcycle mechanic, I'm on my feet all day.
Yeah. On concrete. So it's
On concrete,
rough on your legs.
Yeah, it sure is.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people just believe that the training is what makes you fast, and it's not. It's the recovery that's what
It's the recovery. The recovery is also part of the training. Yeah, recovery is also part of the training.
That's right.
You have to implement that into the plan.
I'm glad you brought that up.
It helps to log it. It helps to take record of it, and it's all revolves around data, proper data. What shoes? How many miles do you have on the shoes? Do I want to use compression tonight? Do I want to use stem light? Do I want to use heat pack? Do you feel something coming on? So
wow.
everything. I can't just sit there and put steam light, heat pack, and then compression, and everything's fine. My body, for some reason, and again, self-educating and learning your body, it doesn't always like the compressions. It doesn't like the leg compressions whatsoever. It's not every single time. The leg compressions, after a long run, for some reason, my legs love it the day after. The night of, it does not. But I
just
can
leave them alone. Let them
leave them alone. Yeah, and it's not like I'm out squatting.
I'm glad you told me that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you might want to try it. It's just it's a matter of just like I learned from. There's so much talent here in this town that if it ain't working, why continue doing it? It's just one of the key phrases that I've learned in some of the recovery shops, or the one and only recovery shop that I knew of here in town.
Instead of taking advice as gospel, see how it applies to you, see how it works for you.
Well, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. You can't, just because they sell the product doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Everyone's feet.
Process, yeah.
Exactly. Everyone's feet is different. Everyone's muscles are different. Everybody recovers differently, and I learned the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mario, right there, that right there is worth the cost of admission to this right now. I'm just glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing, Mario, is that you're with conviction. You know what's going to work for you, And I think that's the message a lot of people need to hear is you've gotten to that point by just listening to your body and being smart and trying different things, but then really zeroing in what works and what doesn't work.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you got to be able to listen to your body, and you have to be able to translate that and and make it work for you. But you know, it's a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there. You know,
Well,
there's a lot of
you
stuff.
sound like you're getting ready really well. What do you have planning for the rest of the 2021? Do you
Well,
have
I'm gonna
anything,
finish.
races?
I'm definitely gonna finish anything. You know, pretty much anything that comes to town. I'm gonna try to shoot at it. It's, you know, 4 events with the club. I'm gonna do everything, all the BBSCs that come to town, and I believe the next one's gonna be the club, or I might have my dates mixed up. But there's also the Utah race, and
San Paulo. Yeah,
that's a beautiful place.
it is.
Beautiful place. I can't wait to go back and
I
see
love that
what kind of-
swim.
Yeah, it is. I thought it was great. That boat ramp is very tricky. Just because you can see it doesn't mean you can stand on it right away.
That's true.
You want to make sure you'll be able to stand on it.
That's true.
Because I
Okay,
learned the
so,
hard way.
you know, that's great. And I love that. And you're spot on. Now, I want you to think back. You've been racing triathlons for about 6 years and bikes before that. And obviously with the boxing that we talked about before that. I want you to think back and tell us what your proudest moment is in sport.
Well, I'm glad, because my proudest moment in sports would have to be one of the greatest wins that I've had in California on a mountain bike, and it was a Harding TT, and I won my very first TT on a mountain bike, and then I was able to win a race out here in Las Vegas. To me, those are one of the proudest moments, just because I was able to win in 2 different states. But again, that's just that's a personal thing, and being that it's a TT kind of thing, and they seem to be very TT material. Put your head down and pound it out.
Mhm.
That is great. I love that. Those are great things to be proud of. That's awesome. All right,
So
so
you're gonna do a 70.3, do you think, this year?
That's what I'm trying for. That's what I'm shooting for. I do believe that I was ready for it last year, but because of everything that had happened, a lot of people, you know, just fell off the face of the planet, and
Yeah.
you know, everything was being shut down. And you know, of course, we find no humor in stuff like that, and people being laid off and things like that. It's just very terrible. But hopefully this year I'm able to go out and bounce back and do a 70.3, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I feel that I feel confident enough with what I know and listening and all the education and all the data that I have and the information that I'm able to pass on with coach staff and whatnot, that I think that I'm pretty confident that I can complete a race and do it smartly.
that's
Yeah,
great.
you may not be able to go as hard as you do in your sprints and Olympics, but you learn a little bit of pacing, and there's no doubt you're going to be able to do it.
Well, exactly. And, you know, and I got to go out and try it. So how am I going to have data
Yeah.
if I don't go out and try it? So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to.
Good.
That's great. I love that. That's neat to have that type of goal. So now we've touched on this already, but I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on what is some great advice for that new triathlete.
Some of the great advice that I can give a new triathlete. How can I put this? It's, you have to listen to your body.
Mhm.
And like I said before, you have to self-educate with the running shoes that you have, with the bike setup that you have, and any other components you'll be using in a swim. So if you're coming out and being a beginner and giving it a try and getting a taste of it, the best thing you can do is self-educate yourself and not get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything is black and white. If the coach gives you a plan, it doesn't mean you're going to go out and get first place.
Well,
This stuff is very tricky.
that is great advice.
good advice.
And what I really like about that advice is that you've listened to your own advice, and really you've really come a long way in, you know, a short period of time. And Mario, thanks so much for coming on this. This is so great to hear more about you and your story. And I did not know you had a boxing background, so that is really neat to hear that. But you're a big
That
part
puts
of
some things in perspective. I mean, now we see why you are a fierce competitor.
Yeah.
And you can see why.
Yeah, there's a lot of fierce competition out there. This valley is full of competition. Very many talented athletes out there in this valley.
It is, and that's what's so great, and that's why I appreciate you. You know, continue. You're a big part of the club. You're a big supporter of the club, and that's
Yep.
really appreciated. And I love seeing you race, and you're just one of those competitors, and it's just fun. It's fun to do that. It's fun to race, you know, at that high level of effort. So
Yeah.
great.
And I want to second,
Thank
I
you.
want to second that, that you're one of the, you're a mainstay in the club. You know,
Yep.
the club is part of what makes the club is you. So
Thank you, guys. It's a great organization, and I love attending and seeing all my friends. It was great to see everyone last Saturday. It was a beautiful moment, especially the speech that John gave right before the swim. It's very motivational. It obviously puts a lot of people under perspective and grounded a few of us and whatnot. But we need to be reminded of certain things,
Yep.
and I'm just glad that everybody came out and have some fun.
That's great. We're awesome, Mario. Well, thanks for doing this, and we'll see you out there training, and we'll see you at the next event.
You got it, sir. Thank you for having me. Thank you,
All right.
guys.
thanks.